to Washington, D.C. with the ouster of Kevin McCarthy. There's another potentially messy speaker election expected, as we heard at the top of the show. But for now, some big questions are, what's next? Who is in line? And why would anyone, to be honest, want this job? Joining us now is Maura Gillespie. She served as the Deputy Chief of Staff to former U.S. Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger. Maura, great to have you on the show. I know we've got plenty of questions for you. And I think, first of all, is trying to just help us more make sense of this infighting and what comes next, because a scramble is clearly on now to find a new speaker. Who's the realistic candidate in your eyes? I think we've got two who've thrown their hats in the ring, Scalise and Jim Jordan.
Steve Scalise will have the most support, and you saw that even from those hardliners that created this mess in the first place. They have, Matt Gaetz particularly, has said that he would support Steve Scalise. And again, having the infrastructure of leadership is super important. Jim Jordan does not have that. Yes, he's a committee chairman, but he does not have the infrastructure that Steve Scalise already has. So to make it a little more seamless and hopefully tamp down the chaos and everything that's happening in the Republican caucus, Republican conference, it would be likely that Steve Scalise should be the prevailer of becoming the next speaker. But it's still going to be tough because, again, as we've just been talking about with your guests previously, the Ukraine aid issue is front and center with Republicans right now.
Yeah, and do we know, I mean, we know where Jim Jordan sits on this because we heard where he stands on Ukraine aid. We heard that, we had played a little clip from him. Do we know where Steve Scalise stands on this? Because, you know, Jordan has a bit of a reputation for being confrontational, beholden to the right. What about Scalise here?
So what's interesting about Jordan is that what I'm hearing is that he has told different people different things. So I think public facing, and again, this is some of the problems that you're seeing with the Republican caucus, is that they'll say certain things in private. So to those who are, you know, pro-Ukraine and the GOP, they've been assured that Jordan would not, you know, that Jordan would move through with the Ukraine funding as it currently stands. But what he's saying publicly is that he would not, because the border is the main focus. So it's a little frustrating, even before we even get to the vote for speaker, that that Jordan's already being pretty wishy-washy. That doesn't really bode well for him. But I think part of the problem with the messaging right now is that you have people on the far right fringe of the party who are repeating really pro-Russian talking points about how much waste of money we're spending in Ukraine. And I think what Republicans, especially those who are supportive of the Ukrainian aid and recognize the need for us to be in their corner, really need to make the connection and tie it back to Russia's connection to China. So us failing to support Ukraine and failing to keep our word for our allies, we're really empowering China. And that seems to be what will speak, I think, to Republican voters. They do see the threat that China poses and are fearful of the stranglehold that China will have on not only our economy, but our technology, our intellectual property. So I think for Republicans, that's going to be the strategy to go with, is to tie it back to this is also our attempts for our national security, for our safety here at home, that we support Ukraine, again, as Russia and China are looking to build up their alliances with Iran and North Korea. So it's really important that we support Ukraine.
Maura, really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. Thank you very much.